So before we get too far away from it, I want to show you. This was the inspiration piece. This is what we've come to today. A couple of colors, playing with some different supplies, the firework happening. I could do more splatter on here. I really want to go in with my Prismacolors and play with the face a little bit, bring it up, possibly. But I'm also sort of not wanting to do that. So it's very interesting. I kind of like seeing the lack of description in the face and knowing internally inside myself that she was there, but she's like fallen further back inside of that firework experience. It's more the energy that's coming out of her that I really care about. So we'll see. I'm gonna take some time and sit with it. But if we go forward with that, then I will go forward with that. I really do like this paper. It's nice thickness, decent amount of thickness, and it really took the water. You could see it really took the water. I'm gonna let it dry thoroughly. It's still wet. It's like wet here. You can see it's still kind of wet and kind of that. And I think it's real important when you get to a certain place in your painting to just take a deep breath, step away, go have some dinner, play with your puppies or your kitty if you have a cat, or your horse if you have a horse, or go take a shower or go exercise, or just step away completely from your art and just be like, allow that buzz that's inside of you to just sort of move forward with whatever your next steps are, whatever your next things are you're going to do, and then come back to it and decide what your next steps are going to be. I'm not really sure what my next steps are going to be. I kind of feel, we'll see. All right, I'm going to take a breather. With love and light. See you later. I hope you enjoyed. Okay, so I just wanted to do another little follow-up video here because I was looking at her this morning. I was spending some time with her and kind of looking at her and realizing that this is like where I started from. This is what she's morphed into. And she almost reminds me of a recent piece that I did that's more from it was completely from my imagination. And so this is the piece that I recently did that was more from, that just really kind of morphed and came out from my imagination. And I'm thinking about doing an art journaling prompt around her this next month. So I think it might be really fun to kind of take a look at her and see where we might be going with our art journaling. But this piece right here is what she came up as. This is where she is right now. And I really see her face as being very different than this, actually. And so I'm going to move this away because it's no longer helping me. It doesn't really, it was a great prompt. It got me started. It kind of moved me down in that way to like start working on this. But now I really want to find out who she is and who she's showing herself to be to me as I'm playing with pencil and mark making within this. Now, this is actually, it's a Sanford, very thin, it's a purple pencil. It's violet number 742. And so I was thinking about using that a little bit to sort of see what it is that I'm seeing in her face. I almost see a little bit of like almost like her eyes are closed, and like she's in sort of a more inside of her internal world than she is in the external world. And as I'm looking at her, I'm sort of just mapping in where I think her closed eyes could be. This could be like the top of her eyelid right there. And then the space between the eyes, about the same as the space to the eyes. And actually, I think I want my medium to be as forgiving as possible, meaning that I want to be able to mix water with it and remove it if I'm not happy with where I go. And so this is where I would start pulling in things like these graphitants, the Derwent graphitants, or the Inktense, or some of these watercolor pencils that I have, so that I can mix them with water and see where they go. So this is the one that's kind of calling to me right now. It's Aubergine number 3 from the Derwent Graphitant series. So I'm going to play with this as I kind of work on her face here. So remember when I said, as I was looking at this, as I'm going to pull this back in, and I was saying that like here are your angles on your piece. That's the angle there, the angle there, the angle there of her lips, her nose, her mouth, to keep her kind of, and if I try to drop that down on here, that angle is not the same here. So she's actually at this angle, and this angle. So as I'm building out her eyes and the base of where her nose might be, somewhere in here, and where her lips might be, somewhere in here, halfway between the bottom of her nose and there, I'm just really working in to the face that's there at this angle right here, this angle, not this angle. And so your piece will reveal itself to you as you're playing with it, as you're working on it. You will start to see your piece revealing who she is, who comes out of the canvas here, what's happening here. She's got her eyes kind of closed. She's in sort of this meditative space. Her brows would be somewhere up here, middle of her eyes somewhere here, like that would be like her lid area. And up here is this area up here. And we're gonna go ahead and let's see what we have here. Sorry about that. Hear my throat. Yeah, good. Here we are. Good. Yep, there it is. Right there and right there, with her nose area and things as we're going here. And there, and then here's her cheek area here, cheek area here. So she's kind of right in there. Forehead area and hair in here. And so again, just kind of really slowly moving into who is this being that's kind of showing herself to be on this page, who's kind of come out of the firework, essentially, who's within that energy. And again, we've got the nose that's there, and the eyes, and the eyelids, and the brows, and the face. And we just kind of keep moving around. There was an ear that was here when we were originally creating. Now it's going to be closer to the head because her head is sort of off to the side over here. Neck area in here, a little bit of her neck. And then, you know, this is where her hands were. So we're going to move in with some of that. Like, okay, this is where the hands were. There was a hand up here, and she was in there. So I'm just kind of moving in with some of that movement of where the hand was, right? And then we have these really pretty marks that are already made on the paper with the beautiful the white Holbein acrylic ink. And that's going to serve as a resist now when the page gets wet. Alrighty, where is my little spray bottle? I can't live without my spray bottles. I actually have two that I really love, and only one is in the room right now. The other one is in another room. But this is just a basic little, oops, sorry about that little bump there. This is a basic, very basic spray bottle that I got from, like, I think, I don't know, I don't know if it was which grocery store or CVS or something like that. I was probably just in the aisle and saw it and thought, oh, I like these little stripes. These little Ziva stripes. This is going to be my... So I tap in on top of the piece with just little spritzes of water. All right, so I'm wetting the piece again. And you'll see, as that happens, what happens to her face here? Look. She starts to morph. She starts to become dimensional. And that's what I absolutely love here, is that she's becoming dimensional for us. I had all of my paintbrushes. Oh, I just moved them over here to get them out of the way, because obviously I was not going to be painting today. I was just going to be drawing. Ha ha. This is where you need to let your piece talk to you. And what is it that you need for it? So this is a 0 silver black velvet. And I'm going to go in here, and there we have our eyebrow area. So we're pushing into that, pulling into that. We're working with the water that's on the page. I'm actually inclined to tap off some of that water. Here, again, my Kleenex is... I'll get better about where I have my supplies in relation to what I'm working on as we're doing this, as we're moving forward. But do you see how I kind of pulled that up? Then I come back in with the pencil again. And what's interesting is that when this tip of the pencil, of the graphitin, gets a little bit wet, what happens to it is that it starts to release more color. The same way as a lot of the tools that when they get wet, they do that. So I'm refining some of her face shape here as she's sort of on her side. The other thing that's interesting is that I think that I have a lot of pieces that it's almost like characters emerge. A character will emerge from me. It's either a reflection or a part of myself, or it's something that is coming through for me on the page. But that when that happens, there's almost like a distinctive personality that comes through, a distinctive character, and she repeats herself in different pieces. And sometimes she can be a little bit more to the feminine side. She's, definitely feminine. I've also had some pieces where I'm recognizing this face that comes to me a lot when I'm working in purple, and a lot of times in purple and gold. But there's also kind of an androgynous face that'll come through it, where it could be a female, it could be a male. But this is definitely, for this piece, this was female, as she was dancing and moving within the background there. And so again, I'm sort of placing, I'm like, here's her ear, here's the side of her neck, here's her head, it's leaning back to the side, here's her neck there. And so just blending her again into some of that background, and then coming in with my paintbrush and tapping that color in against the resist that's there. And then here again, we are painting with water. I love painting with water. You can totally paint with just water. Once you have water down on the paper and you have water soluble elements on the paper, you can go back in and paint. So like her brows have kind of disappeared, but I sort of still know where they are. They were like right around in here. And then here we have the base of her eyes. We have that nose that's kind of there at the bottom of it. And some shadowing that's happening. There's more white than I want to be there with the nose right now, here and here. Her upper cheek area is light. It's very pretty and light. And then the lip area here, again, as we sort of paint into it. And then again, keeping the angle, right? So angle, angle, angle. So what happens is a lot of times, and I think that as you progress with your art, and especially if you're working on faces or physiology, bodies, even though if you're working on flowers or anything, everything that has proportion, what happens, I believe, is that as you grow stronger as an artist, that you start to check yourself. And oh, this is a good analogy. When I'm riding my horse, I learned over the years to check a lot of things, right? I check to make sure that I have good contact with her mouth, but not too much contact with her mouth. Where I look to see if, how do my legs feel on her? Where are my butt bones seated on her? As I'm moving, as her body is moving and as I'm moving. Am I sitting straight up? Do I have good posture with her? Are my elbows naturally kind of relaxed at my side as I'm have my hand contact with the reins? If not, where do I make the adjustments? And what happens is that you start to make all these small, tiny little adjustments when you're on your horse over and over again. And it's the same way, I think, as an artist, is that you go in and you make these tiny adjustments. I even heard something interesting the other day by a hairstylist that I follow. And she said, you know, that essentially when she has somebody with her in the chair, what she does is she cuts into the line and the style of where she's going with the haircut, and the whole remainder of the haircut is adjusting that haircut to that person's head and face. So, okay, I was telling this story, which I thought is pretty important about the adjustments that you make. And I was talking with or watching this hairstylist the other day, and she does at home, like she has courses so that you can cut your own hair at home. And I've been cutting my own hair for years, and sometimes I do better at it than others. I just recently went really short. I haven't been this short with my own hair cutting in forever, like ever, probably ever. Probably haven't seen my hair this short since I was in college. So it's kind of a big change and everything. But as I was watching her video and listening to what she was saying, I thought one of the interesting pieces about what she was saying is that she cuts the main haircut, and then the whole remainder of the haircut, when you have a client sitting in the chair, is actually adjusting that haircut to that person's head, face shape, and everything like that, so that you get it so that it looks right for that particular person that's sitting in your chair, right? And I feel like that's much the same case here when we're drawing and we're working with our tools and we're playing with color, and we lay something in, we pull something out, we lay something in. I'm really loving what's happening here with her face, by the way. I want to share that. I'm darkening underneath her lip. I'm kind of looking sort of where her nose is kind of here. Some of the, way too much. Way too much color there. That is not good. So here, my friends, is how I erase. It's the same thing as kind of erasing. I put a lot of water on this piece right here, and then I just go in and gently tap, 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 la 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 la. Okay. And then I was looking at these colors when I originally was kind of sharing yesterday, and I thought, ooh, I want to come in with some of those colors on the face a little bit. And I'm not really sure what made me move to the green, but I was thinking about it yesterday as I was afterward, when I had moved away from the gold and the purple to this green and the purple. When I think of green, I think of healing. And to me, this little firework here, she's healing from the inside out. She is, the reason I feel like there's a lot of green around her is because it's almost like, in a sense, as I'm painting her and drawing her and using mixed media on her, what I'm seeing for her is that she needs healing. And so she's in a place where we're working on her healing here. And so we're putting in a lot of greens. Warmer, cooler greens. We're working with the greens and with the purples. The purple is her creativity. Oh, this is interesting what's happening kind of with her face here in these colors. It's probably in a way too much, but I'm also loving the effect of it, of what's happening here. I'm kind of like, what's happening? But I am saying what's happening here, because something's happening here with her face and with the colors. And as I'm talking about this and everything, is that we're bringing healing to this little sweet firework. And these are the colors that she needs on the inside of herself as she's healing. Whereas green is for healing and purple is for creativity. Purple is also a color that's related to royalty. That's why you'll see a lot of royalty with purple robes and purple crowns, and purple. It's a very deeply creative color, and it's also I don't know what I'm trying to say there with the royalty aspect of it, but I'm thinking about how over the years that was part of how the royals would share or be seen with their abundance and their beautiful, not ordinary, everyday robes and crowns and things that that these colors were really reserved for very special occasions, and they symbolized a lot of creativity. I'll talk more about that as we do future classes and things, I think, because there's another little piece that I did that I thought was very interesting to me, and she kind of morphed as well. And again, the colors were really these purple and green colors. So for whatever reason, I think that what happens is that you naturally kind of gravitate into whatever colors you need inside of yourself, because that's what you're choosing for the pictures. You're co-creating the image. Again, this is really, I blot, I don't rub. If you rub the paper and you rub everything that's on top of it, you have a very high risk of the paper pilling or ripping into the paper when it's wet. So I take a lot of care to blot. I'm a blotter if I do anything with color. And again, I'm not really sure why I'm going back in so heavily with these colors today. I did not have the intention of moving these colors in so high, but I think that it's kind of, for some reason, I feel like this character really needs that extra layer or more of these colors around her as she's in this state of healing and expression and dance. And morphing. That's interesting what just happened down here with this color, with this green against the purple. It turned it into a very interesting little color on the page. So again, you need to maintain a level of awareness around how your color is going to morph with the other colors that are on the page already that you have there. And I'm actually going in over some of the white, a lot of the white lines with this greener color in here to highlight this character with this green around her in this firework explosion thing that's happening here. Not really feeling there yet with her face as I'm watching her and looking at her. I feel like she needs something, a lot, maybe a lot. I don't know. I can feel with my finger on the paper here that it's starting to pill a little bit underneath, so I have to be very careful with next steps in what I do. At this point, sometimes you can't keep going in with watercolor and things. You may need to go in with, you may need to really let the paper dry. It might be time to go in with some acrylic on it, on top of it, because you can just build acrylic on acrylic. You can just keep building. But I don't want to hurt her face here. As I'm working on her. I feel like now she's too yellow-green, way too yellow-green for what I had intended. I'm debating about bringing in some of this, like a fleshier tone on the page. Do I want her to have some flesh in there, flesh tone mixed in for softening and sort of like mid-tones? Again, paper is really delicate underneath, and I can't push down with this pencil right now. So, hang on. I'm gonna just see a little bit what I want to have here with her face. I'm debating about what my next steps might be for her. I'm really debating what my next steps are going to be for her. I feel like went in with that water and I just put it on top and letting it sit with what's on there for a moment, softening it out. And then let's see what happens as I blot up. So some of that green is coming up here. You can see what's coming up without, there's no rubbing that's happening. It's just lifting, 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 lifting. I think I might go back to my paint actually at this point and kind of reactivate some of that purple from yesterday. Put that a little bit, yeah, like that around her eyes. And then that's like her nose area, and you can see where the paper's starting to come up a little bit. Not a fan of what I've done with that. Not happy with where I let this is also why I think I work with the heaviest weight papers when I do. Because to me, it's important to have something that I can continue working into, because I think I work into my papers pretty hard. There we are, a little bit more beneath the eye. Nose is still really not doing it for me. I'm not happy with the nose at all right now. But what happens is that if you start to get too angry with how something, like if you start to get upset about how something's turning out, and you get too attached in that moment, you can start to just, it's almost like really overworking it the way that you would maybe say if you were, it's almost like picking at your face when you have like a blemish or something, and it's just like you're over picking at it. Whereas this can come up in its own, it will come up in its own way. And again, sometimes just adding water on top of paint that's already there softens it out. I've really got to stop with this paper though, with what I'm doing right here, because I'm getting to the point where the paper's just coming up there, and that's not, but you'll run into that too if you start to overwork a piece. And part of me is like, did I like it better before I started? My brain's going in a lot of different directions that I think are not helping me right now. So I think it's important to kind of stop a little bit and give yourself a little bit of a breather. Let the face sort of take its own form. Girls, come on. I want you to chill out a little bit here. They're becoming, And Lovey starts doing this little thing where she she wants to let me know emphatically that she means it. So she starts doing little itches and little things by the door and stuff like that to get out and have her day on the other side of that door. But we are in work mode right this moment, so I'm asking her to just kind of chill out, and she's sort of saying, absolutely not, Mom, I'm not in the chill out mode. I'm not in the chill out mode, and I have my mommy's attention. Not chilling out, not chilling out. Hang on. Okay. This is interesting. I found that I have a lot of trouble with whites. Okay, here we are. With the pencils, I have a hard time getting my whites to read with the watercolor Inktense or any of these different ones that I have. So I'm always exploring, like this is a Derwent Aquatone, so same brand, same company, and then I just dip it into water. Got a really good little point on it so that it can sort of come down here. The paper is still pilling, and the nose is doing something weird here. So letting that kind of go right there. Okay. Bringing in some light on the cheeks, here and here. Oh, but see, what's interesting is look at that. Look at how that comes off on my hands, but it's not coming off on the paper like that. So I almost feel like I want to use my finger on here, now that it's on my finger a little bit, to tap it in, almost like you would tap in makeup on your face. I'm just tapping in some of that white on there. experimenting with how gentle can I use my fingers as I'm working on something that I'm overworking and consciously aware that I'm overworking in that moment. Now this is interesting because this is the Stabilo aquarelle, and I really love the Stabilo line of pencils. So I'm sort of activating the edges of this a little bit on here. I'm dipping it in water and I'm activating it on the edge of my, to get it kind of moving there, so I start to see white coming off of it a little bit. And then I'm going in on her lids and gently working her lids as I'm here. And then gently working her mouth. And again, the shapes don't have to be perfect. They just need to read a little bit. So don't be too hard on yourself. And what I've found is actually most interesting working with even a graphite, charcoal, anything, is that it's a matter of you put in and you take away, and you put in and you take away, and you put in and you take away. So it's not a it's a buildable process. You're constantly building into these pieces as you're working on them. Oh, something interesting is happening here. I'm seeing a little bit, it's almost like a flower formation or something on her cheek that's coming up there. So I kind of want to highlight that a little bit. Maybe even on this side a little bit too. You know, she's dancing. She could have, you know, sparkly makeup on or something. She's on the dance floor. She's losing herself in that music. And healing and feeling creative in her dance. Right? So here we are with that Stabilo all, and we're adding in some of the lights. But again, the Stabilo all doesn't even really lay it down. I've had a really hard time with getting my pencil whites to do what I want them to do. Whereas the color, I don't feel the same way about. I usually get the result that I do want with the color. So now I'm going in with this jelly roll, Japanese, the jelly roll. And I'm tapping into it because the paper's wet. I don't really want to, I really need to let it dry. You'll probably hear me say that a gazillion times. I need to really let it dry. I need to really let it dry. Why don't you let it dry? But I really need to let it dry. Then let it dry. But I feel like maybe I want to continue working into it. That's what ends up happening when you're in that zone and you're playing and things. So here is a point where I feel like I'm going to step away from it and I'm going to allow it to be for a while. I'm going to let it actually dry. I go make myself a cup of coffee. When I come back, I'm going to look at her. I'm going to see where she's coming in on the page and everything. And, you know, with this full awareness now that I need to be very, very careful as I'm working into this paper because it's delicate now. And I don't want to lose what I've worked really hard to bring to form. So, we'll look at that. Interesting. So now she's becoming illustrative. Less, I mean, she was already there, but there's less of anything moving toward a realism and more toward an illustrative piece of, she reminds me of birth, rebirth. And I think many times we have to actually birth and rebirth ourselves from the inside out in our lives. If we're honest with ourselves, you know, there's our original birth that happens within our families. Then there's, as we progress, as we grow, as we mature, as we become adults, as we move through careers, as we move through relationships, we have to constantly be thinking about that, the birthing and the rebirthing. Okay, I'm going to take a little break here. Alrighty. so we're pretty much close to bringing this piece, this final aspect of this art journal into completion. One thing I wanted to share when I was talking about these characters that keep emerging in the work, I shared her just a little while ago, right? She's a character and she's a character, and she's both, these two have both kind of come out. And I'm going to take this one out of the plastic wrapper here to show these a little bit more. But I keep recognizing them as essentially the same character, the same, like there's a recognition that starts to happen in these faces as they are sort of coming to life. And what I see in them is that there's a similarity, almost like they may be a part of the same story somehow in different ways. And so what happens is that with your art journaling, you're going to be layering on top of what you have been creating, and it may morph and change, but it's also most likely going to start to reveal something to you. Different things will be revealed over time as you're going through your art journaling process. And so again, this character is not meant to be a realistic character. I didn't create her for a realism impact. She's more illustrative in nature, obviously. And also she's more from a place of imaginative realism, because as soon as she didn't really fit the dimensions anymore of that piece that I was looking at for inspiration, she wasn't the same. So I've taken her out of the journal itself. And I want to show you something that's happening on the back side of the paper. So you know how I was saying that the paper is actually, I can feel that it's starting to pill a little bit and it's starting to pull up. This is what's going on the back side of it. So I can see this is where the face is, this is where the eyes are closed, and then the rest of it, but you can kind of see that. So I decided I'm going to gesso the back side of this piece. But before I do gesso, I think I'm actually just going to do my best to like finish this out for us. Because otherwise I'd need to like wait for it to dry to then come back in and finish up this piece. And so I'm pulling a Copic multi-liner in the color wine. I had a purple somewhere, but again, you know, I think you're beginning to realize here that purple is a favorite color of mine. And so what happens is that often my favorite colors go missing because either I picked up that pen to write with in a journal or whatever. I'm also going to be moving this so that the face is facing toward me. It makes it easier for my perspective, for my eyes as I'm looking down to see and make sure that the brows are in place in the correct location as I'm working on it here. So I'm getting more realistic with the pen here now for the brow line, almost the same way that if you were putting on your makeup and using a brow liner, I'm going in and almost finding those places where I would say, oh, that would be where individual little hairs are on the brow line. So it's not just a single line across, it's got that detail of like little hair strokes, so that it looks like you can see when you're looking at her up close, you can see that there's actually, like, that would be like little hairs where her brows would be. And again, like I said, the paper is pilling up right there, so I'm catching that and working with it. Here we have the bottom of her eyelid, and I want to put a little bit of an eyelash on there as well, so that there's some eyelash coming off. I don't use a lot of eyelash, but I do use some when I'm working on a piece. Sometimes I've put in a lot and I usually regret it. In the same way, it's almost like it's fake-ish looking, you know, like too fakey looking for me. So I kind of go back in, but here I'm trying to actually get like the eyeliner that would be more like on the top of her lid right there. Okay, and again, here I'm coming down, and this is where she's coming to me straight forward so that I can be looking and saying, all right, here is about where the nose hole would be, like the little nasal area coming around, all right, the side of that. So I'm just sort of bringing that up. Here is where the bottom of the lip would be, the middle of the lip would be here as I'm working through it. And so that's what we're working on here with that particular thing as we're going. Now, again, you're kind of looking at the lines on the face as to where they would naturally match up in this moment. And so I'm pulling in her. A lot of these are dots and speckles that I'm working on, more than I'm working on. And usually the upper lip is darker and the bottom lip is lighter. So I'm going to be coming back in with some white on the bottom lip. And then there's that cute little chin that we were talking about. And I'm only going to hit it in a certain few places, the sides of the face, the cheek area. So lost and found lines on the side. When we look at a person's face, we don't see the line around the bottom. So creating into a piece when you're at the final stages of it, of the development of it, or even as you're creating throughout, is that you're looking and saying, all right, where would those lost and found edges be? Where would I see her face and then maybe not? Oh, interesting. Here she's coming up with more of like a fairy face here. I'm almost seeing like fairy ears or fairy earrings, or something that's a little bit more surreal. And then, oh, I'm seeing like this crown is kind of taking shape here. So it's that queen character that's emerging again in space, where she's taking up the helm of her life, and she's making choices and making decisions, and she knows she's not going to make all of them correctly, but she's in that place where she's doing the best she can with what she has, and she's going to continue to do so. And so these are almost like leaves, or I don't know exactly, but they're emerging on her as around the sides of her face there. And then we have some darker places on the face where the eyes have where there's shape that normally we have, like that dimensionality as we're looking at it. Again, I need to reposition her for myself as I'm looking at her, to work with these elements that are coming into play for me. And these are just very organic strokes. I just am seeing them, and so I'm taking them and doing them as I see them. And that's where really the art of pareidolia, I don't know how to say that very well, but it's where you begin to see things emerging within your piece, very much like when you're looking up at the clouds in the sky and you see elephants or mice or kitties or something else that's fun up in the clouds when you're laying on your back. And why do we do that? We do that because it's like fun and playful, and it's a very interesting way to connect with your brain and allow your right brain to see and make those connections that maybe your left brain isn't making the same way. And so it's like, what is coming out in that moment for us? What are those things that we're seeing as we're working? Now, I had developed a very a sloppy pen line over the years, and it's something that when I say sloppy, I don't mean that I don't take care with it, but what I mean is that it's something that yes, I take care with it, but it's also a sloppy pen line, where I go in and allow my hand and the movements of my body to kind of just sort of create that space. Part of that is that from a neurological perspective, like my brain, I'm having I have tremors, I have things that I deal with like that. And so instead of making that be like feeling like a disability, like a lack of an ability, I move that into my artwork so that when my hands are tremoring, when I don't have stability in my fingers, when I'm doing that, it becomes a part of my line work. And I love that line work, and I love that about myself. So a lot of times we can look at something that maybe is going wrong with our health, and we can almost on top of, like, we add salt to the wound mentally and emotionally by telling ourselves that we're, like something even greater is wrong with us because we're not perfect and we have all these things going on. And instead of doing that, what I allow art to do for me is to celebrate all those awkward eccentricities in my movement and allow those things to become a part of my artwork. So I use it a lot in my abstraction, and I love that about myself. I think that if you were trying to teach someone how to get that line, you wouldn't be able to necessarily teach them how to get that line, because it's part of now my unique signature. It's part of who I am as an artist and what I bring out in my work, and that's something that's special to me. And so I choose to use that in a way of celebration, in a way of lightness, in a way of joy. I try to bring out those good things in myself, rather than beat up on myself for something that I honestly am not able to control. As I'm getting older, there are issues with this, and guess what? That's life. So here we are again. I'm putting this. I think you can see. I can see it. Yeah, I can see it there. And I actually think maybe I need to move that a little further forward. I'm not sure. Maybe tilt this up a little bit more so you can see more of what's going on the desk as I'm going forward with this last little bit here. Let's see if I can get that a little bit more, a little more, tap, 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 a little bit more. Here we go. I think that'll be a little better for you to see. Okay, so here we are, final stages, and I take a little bit of this. Oof, that was open, and so I just splattered all over my desk. The thing that you've got to learn first and foremost as an artist is definitely don't be too precious about your clothing, about your pieces, about your space, because it will surprise you. Your artwork will do these wonderful things. You'll have these moments. So here was a happy accident, right? It happened. It was on my finger. So I just kind of took it and worked it into the piece a little bit. And she's got a couple little dots around her face here. I do want to take this little fine liner right here and go in a little bit. And we're going to say there's a little bit of light happening and reflecting on her lower lip. This little bit that's happening on her nose, we're going to move it around a bit. Maybe grab a little bit of water for that and soften it so that it's not too, too light there. Just like when we put on our makeup and we kind of blend it in, that's what we're doing here. We're just kind of blending some of these moments into her skin, into the places where we have. And, okay, a little bit of that splatter I'm putting on the brush. And then going in and look at this, amazing, with the little teensy tiny tip of this brush, I'm able to go around and put some dots around her eyes on the lash line. You wouldn't even be able to see these if you didn't have the dark, so it's kind of important to make sure that in places where you're going to be going in with your lightest slates that you also have enough dark in there so that you can see what those transitions are as you're going through it. All right, and then here we are. We have a few more things happening here. And we're working on that crown a bit. And we're putting in some dots here, little movement into those spaces so that we're adding light to these little fine locations where the crown is. And it almost looks like there's like, I don't know if there are beads on there or if there's like it reminds me of kind of like a little beaded crown in a way, almost like it's hanging down. And then we're moving into these spaces. We're allowing that to morph and change and grow as we go. And then here's where those cool little ear things came up, where I was sort of seeing, I think it's more of like a costume that she has on, like it kind of covers over the sides of her head and her ear as part of this crown. And I did see that in this tiny piece that I did here, that the crown was on her here, and then there was this like cloak that went over it to almost cloak her like when she went outside. So she, like, I know that that's there underneath, but it's also that there's aspects of her that are being cloaked or covered in that. So again, we're going into this character here and we're working on some of those things. And yes, I'm pulling the splattered acrylic ink off this brush, off my table, to use it instead of losing it. Use it, don't lose it. Yeah, I'm using it here. We're moving in, using the sides of the brush to drag that as a dry treatment over the top there. Little dry treatments here with the final bits of what's on this brush here. All right. She has a little bit here. I want to put a little bit of light above her lip to give her a little bit, and then a little bit around this area here in the middle there. And that is where we are going to call it for today on this piece. Not exactly sure what to title her yet. Well, I think we're going to call her Firework for sure, because she is a firework. And this is what has emerged from this session. And again, keep in mind, your piece does not have to come out as this beautiful, like fully rendered, amazing piece. And what you can do is learn from this piece, whatever you have, and then go in and do another piece, and then go in and do another piece, and then go in and do another piece, and continue to work with the medium, continue to play with it, see how it morphs and changes over time, and then go from there. Okie dokie. I'm gonna call it right now on this. I keep saying I'm gonna call it, but this is it. This is me actually calling it. All right, I want to say with love and light, wishing you the very best as you go into your day, and remember that you are here. Your very presence as you are is perfect in your DNA. You know, go out and shine your light. Be the best version of you that you can possibly be. The world really needs us now more than ever, doing the things that we're most uniquely able to do. See, love that. Love this. All right. Okay, we're calling it, and I'm wishing you a wonderful, wonderful day with love and light.